Chapter 6. The summer was passing by. It was now near the end of August. Mrs. Eileen Boyle, a neighbor, lived 4 homes down the street from the Donovans. To entertain her 3-year-old daughter, Mrs. Boyle would call Al and give him bones and food scraps. To the delight of the little girl, Al would eat the scraps and bury the bones in Mrs. Boyle's window boxes. Many times Mamma Sarah told Mrs. Boyle she shouldn't do it, for if she ever wanted to plant flowers in the boxes, Al would feel the boxes were his and pull up the flowers. Sure enough, a short time later, that is just what happened. One day Mrs. Boyle went to the store and bought some nice flower bulbs and planted them in her flower boxes. A few days later, Al dug them up and dropped them to the ground. Mrs. Boyle planted them again. She watched for Al. He showed up and started to dig up her flower bulbs again. She ran outside and yelled at him, "Shoo, Al, shoo! You stay away from my flower boxes." Al flew away, but was back a few minutes later. Mrs. Boyle went outside and tossed some small sticks at Al to shoo him away. Al let the sticks fall near him as he jumped to one side. Then he fluffed his feathers, shook all over, and laughed, just like a person. This really irritated Mrs. Boyle. She shouted at him, "You're a bad bird, Al. Now get out of here. Go home." Al flew away, but came back many times, and each time Mrs. Boyle tossed sticks and yelled at him. One day, a short time later, Al was sitting on a branch high up in the tree when he saw Mrs. Boyle hang out her wash on the clothesline. He waited for her to go back into her house. He flew down, and one by one he pulled the clothespins out, so the clothes would drop to the ground. Mrs. Boyle saw what Al had done and went screaming over to Mamma Sarah's house. Mamma Sarah apologized for what Al had done and immediately went over to Mrs. Boyle's home and gathered up the now soiled clothes, washed, dried, and neatly folded everything and returned them to Mrs. Boyle. "Eileen, I'm truly sorry. That Al is a real little devil. We never know what he's going to do next," Mamma Sarah apologized. "Sarah, I'm sorry too that I got so upset. It was partly my fault. You warned me about feeding Al and giving him those bones." The two women hugged each other. When Mamma Sarah returned home, she took a cage out of the garage and sat it on the back porch. She picked up Al and put him in the cage. He hopped up on the porch and looked at her. "Al, you're a bad bird. You did a naughty thing to Mrs. Boyle. You should be ashamed. You'll stay in the cage, and there won't be any treats for Al." He looked at her intently. "Mamma, you talk to Al like he's a real person. He doesn't understand you," said Katy. "Maybe not all the words, sweetie, but he understands the tone of my voice." "It's like he's in jail," Megan added. She started to dance around Al's cage and sing, "Al's in jail, Al's in jail, Al's in jail." Mamma Sarah stopped her. "Okay, honey, that's enough. We know Al's been bad and is in a cage. Come on, I'll make you girls some Kool-Aid." "Yeah, Kool-Aid! I want strawberry," beamed Katy. "Me too, me too, me too," chanted Megan. A few minutes later Ben came home and entered the porch. He was greeted by Polly's "Work hard, Ben?" The girls jumped up from their chairs and went over and hugged their dad. Ben walked over and kissed Mamma Sarah on the forehead. "What's with Al in the cage?" She poured him a cold glass of Kool-Aid and told him the story of Al's escapade. Ben sat down, looked at Al and smiled. "What a bird." Al leaned forward and looked at Ben. Then he said, "Al's in jail, Ben." Ben choked on the Kool-Aid he was drinking. Sarah and the girls burst out laughing. Chapter 7. On the Labor Day weekend, Ben, Mama Sarah, the girls, and their 3 pets went down the long, steep, wooden, white painted stairs in front of their house to the lake. They put the food items on an unpainted wood picnic table. Near the water, Ben dug a small hole in the sandy ground. He filled it with bits of paper and wood. Then he lit the paper and placed a metal grill across the hole. He was going to cook hamburgers. Megan and Katie built a sandcastle at the shore's edge. Stubby was wading in the water with Al riding on his back. Polly was in her cage and watched everybody. There were many people out on the lake in their rowboats, canoes, or power boats. All around the lake, firecrackers and sparklers were seen and heard. When a loud cherry bomb went off, Stubby ran and hid under the picnic table. Al flew to Mama Sarah and yelled, "Mama, Mama!" Polly looked at Ben and screeched. Katie enjoyed the booms, but Megan covered her ears. They were having a fun time. Neighbors strolled by and exchanged happy greetings. A little boy, who was Katie's age, stood by the water talking to her. He didn't want to leave. His parents had to drag him away. Mama Sarah smiled. "He's going to be a charmer when he grows up." "That he is, Donovan," agreed the boy's mother as they continued walking down the sandy shore. Ben finished cooking the hamburgers, and Mama Sarah told the girls to come and sit at the table. Stubby waddled over and sat at Ben's feet. Stubby knew that one of the hamburgers was for him. Megan held out a small carrot to Polly, who stood on one leg, took the carrot with her other foot, and put it up to her sharp beak to eat. Al was now flying around the lake, looking down at the people in the boats. Twice he flew down by the people in the rowboat. As he passed overhead, he said, "Hello." They were all surprised and laughed as Al flew away. When they sat down to eat, Katie said the blessing. Ben put a hamburger on the bun that Mama Sarah had placed on each of the paper plates. Ben also put a hamburger on a paper plate for Stubby and set it down on the ground. Even before Mama Sarah finished pouring the lemonade, Stubby had eaten his hamburger and looked up for another one. Ben laughed and shook his head no. He held up his open hands and said to Stubby, "No more, all gone." Mama Sarah and the girls laughed as Stubby turned his head to one side and barked. Soon after they had finished eating, a cool breeze began to blow. Ben looked at the sky across the lake. "Maybe we should pack up our things and go back up to the house. It looks like a storm is moving this way." Mama Sarah, Katie, and Megan started to clear the table as the wind became stronger. Ben removed the grill and put out the fire by shoveling sand into the hole. A big black cloud moved over the lake. People in their boats were hurrying back toward the shore. Suddenly, the other side of the lake, there was a crack of lightning, and they saw a jagged white bolt flash across the sky. Following the lightning was a roar of thunder. Ben looked at the sky with concern. "Okay, let's get a move on and get up the stairs to the house." Mama Sarah looked at Katie. "You take Polly in her cage. Megan, you can help me carry some of these food items." "Yes, Mama, I'll take care of Polly," assured Katie. "I'm helping you too, Mama." They gathered up everything and headed up the steep white wooden stairs to their house. Stubby was chugging up behind them. As they got to the top of the stairs and about to enter the house, it started to rain. They heard a mournful cry coming from the sky. "Mama, Mama Sarah, help Al!" They looked out up and saw Al trying to fly to them, but the strong wind was blowing him towards the woods on the other side of the lake. "There he is!" shouted Mama Sarah as she pointed to the sky. "Mama, Mama, Mama!" the struggling bird cried. He flapped his wings to no avail. The wind was too strong for him. Al's cries became weaker as he drifted away from them. "Mama Sarah, help Al!" is the last thing they heard him cry. "Oh my gosh!" cried or Mama Sarah shouted. "Daddy, Daddy, help Al!" cried Katie. Little Megan stared wide-eyed as Al sailed away from them. She started to cry. Stubby, frightened by the thunder, started to bark. "Put the things into the front porch, and let's get in my pickup and follow after Al," yelled Ben, as he opened the front porch door. They tossed the things they were carrying into the porch. Katie sat Polly's cage down behind Stubby as he scampered onto the porch. Ben shut the door and they ran to his pickup, parked by the side of the house. They got into the pickup and headed down the road. Even though it was now pouring rain, they rolled down the windows with the hope that they would hear or see Al. Mama Sarah leaned out her window and looked up at the sky. Ben steered the pickup along the winding dirt road that weaved through the woods. "There he is!" shouted Mama Sarah. "He's been blown towards the taller trees." Ben turned the pickup and raced in the direction Mama Sarah had pointed. They were now under Al and could hear him as he cried, "Mama, Mama, Mama!" It was a sad wail for help. The lightning and thunder continued as the rain splashed against the front windshield and into the open windows. The windshield wipers weren't doing much good in the downpour. Megan and Katie, who were squeezed between their parents, were staring out the front window. Ben stopped the pickup. "Sarah, can you see or hear Al?" "No, not since he went above the tall trees." They sat there for a minute. No one said anything. They were feeling terrible about what might happen to Al. "It looks like the storm is passing," said Ben, as he opened the door and stepped out of the pickup, and into the light rain. It was just a quick squall, but those winds were fierce. "Daddy, what about Al?" Megan asked. Tears were falling from her eyes. "I think we'll find him, honey," said Ben as he looked over at Mama Sarah, who knew he didn't believe what he had just said. Mama Sarah stepped out of the pickup and looked around. The rain had almost stopped. There was only a slight drizzle. She sighed. Her chest was heavy. She wanted to cry, but couldn't let Megan and Katie see how she felt. She didn't see Al. She didn't hear a sound. Tears welled up in her blue eyes. Mama Sarah walked around the pickup to try and compose herself. As she stepped up next to Ben, she whispered, "We need to head back home." Ben nodded, and they got back into the pickup. "Did you see Al, Mama?" Katie asked. "No, honey. Maybe he's flying further away." "Is he flying home?" Megan whimpered. "Could be," answered Ben. He turned the pickup around and headed home. Wanting to get the girls to think of something else, he changed the subject. "I hope all those boaters on the lake got back to the shore okay." "What do you think, Katie?" The ploy didn't work, as she didn't answer. She was thinking of Al. "Mama, what happened to Al?" asked Megan. Mama Sarah leaned over and picked Megan up and sat her on her lap. "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know," she said softly, and patted her daughter's head. They arrived home a few minutes later, and walked to the front porch. They were greeted by Polly's "Hello, Ben. Work hard?" No one was in the mood to laugh. Katie picked up Polly's cage. Megan and Stubby followed Katie into the kitchen. Mama Sarah and Ben started to pick up the things they'd left on the glassed-in porch. Later, Mama Sarah made some hot cocoa. They all sat on the back porch, listened to the radio, and sipped the hot cocoa. They were feeling terrible. There was very little conversation. Even Polly was quiet. No one said so, but they had all pretty much given up hope that Al was okay. About an hour later, they heard 5 pecks at the screen door. They all looked at one another. Then there were 5 more pecks at the door. Kitty jumped up and ran to the door, and opened it. A wet and disheveled Al strutted in. He fluffed his wings to shed the rainwater, and then bowed in his usual manner and looked at Mama Sarah. "Hello! Al come home, Mama." They were surprised and happy. The girls began to dance around the room. Mama Sarah and Ben stood up and hugged each other. Stubby waddled over to Al and wagged his tail. Mama Sarah was grinning ear to ear as tears ran down her cheeks. She stepped over to Al and picked him up. She held him close to her. Polly rocked on her perch and said, "Al's home. Al's home." The end.